Oh yeah, I'm doing it. I'm gonna try to beat Pokemon Gen 1 with only a single Weedle. If you didn't know, Weedle is tied for the Pokemon with the lowest base stat total in all of Generation 1. It has 40 base HP, 35 base attack, 30 base defense, 50 base speed, and 20 base special, making for a total of 175, which is tied with Caterpie in case you were wondering. But it's not just that. Weedle can learn 2 moves. Poison Sting, a 15 base power poison type move with a 20% chance of poisoning the opponent, and String Shot, which lowers the opponent's speed. 15 base power is absolutely pathetic, and lowering speed is pretty much useless, especially in a single Pokemon playthrough. But that's still not all. Weedle is a poison bug type, meaning it takes double the damage from fire, flying, rock, bug, and psychic moves, which is a terrible set of weaknesses, especially in this gen. It only grants resistances to fighting and grass, which is pretty much worthless. Granted, they are 4 times resistances, but still, it's not the best. As you might imagine, these aspects make it a pretty alluring Pokemon to do a challenge run with. Several videos have been made trying to beat Gen 1 with only a Weedle. Thing is, pretty much all these videos use items. Well, except for one Pokemon Yellow run by Jake McClay. But even with all these videos already being made, I thought it'd be fun to toss my hat into the ring and try to beat Pokemon Blue with only a single Weedle. Before we start, let's go over the rules. Rule 1. The item menu is banned during battles. Rule 2. Every named trainer must be defeated. Basically, this means the gym leaders, every rival fight, the 4 Elite Four members, basically any of the boss trainers. Rule 3. After we acquire a Weedle, it is the only Pokemon allowed on the field. One of the starters will be used in the interim. And Rule 4. Have fun! Immediately we're faced with a fairly tough decision. Which starter to choose? Not that we'll be using it, of course, but the rivals team is dictated by which starter you yourself pick. So we gotta think about this a little bit. For me, Bulbasaur was obviously out, as that Charmander is going to evolve into a Charizard, which has Fire Blast and is also a Fire Flying type. And while you may think that we would want to choose Squirtle so he would be facing Bulbasaur, I wasn't so sure at first. If we pick Squirtle, then we have to fight Venusaur, who is scary, even though we quad resist grass. It has Razor Leaf. This is the real big sticking point. Razor Leaf has an increased critical hit chance. In every other generation, that means it has about a 12% chance to get a critical hit. However, in Generation 1, due to the weird way that critical hit rates are calculated, Razor Leaf, when used by a Venusaur, will crit every single time. So yeah, we still gotta watch out for that. Also, don't forget that if we take Squirtle, we're going to have to fight a Gyarados. Gyarados has Hydro Pump, a 110 base power move, and Hyper Beam, a 150 base power move. However, if we choose Charmander, then we're going to have to fight a Blastoise and an Exeggutor. The Blastoise has Blizzard. Blizzard has a 10% chance of applying the Freeze status effect when it hits. And in Gen 1, Blizzard will hit 90% of the time. If we get frozen, we lose. Straight up. The only way you can unfreeze is if the opponent uses Haze, or the opponent uses a Fire-type move that can inflict Burn. That's it. You cannot thaw out in Generation 1, no matter how long you wait. Similarly, if we get put to sleep, we're pretty much fucked. Sleep lasts 1 to 7 turns in Generation 1, and you cannot attack the turn you wake up. Granted, Hypnosis only hits 60% of the time, but the fact that we would have to deal with this in the same fight as Blizzard Freeze chances makes me kinda nervous. In the end, I decided to go with Squirtle, meaning that the rival will choose Bulbasaur. Because, let's face it, I'm gonna have to spend hours on the champion fight praying for crits and misses, and anything that cuts out unnecessary RNG is going to be so great. At least I hope so. With our starter chosen, we finally grab the parcel and head into Viridian Forest to catch our Weedle. However, not just any Weedle is going to be able to complete this challenge. Don't forget, we're not using items in battle, and thus we have no way to recover HP during a fight. We need our Weedle to be as strong as possible so that it has a better chance of getting through these fights. And pretty much every stat is vital in this challenge. We need attack, so we can knock out Pokemon before they attack us. We need defense, so we don't take as much damage when we do get hit, and we will. We need special for the same reason as defense. And we need speed to make sure that we outspeed and don't take the first hit. And of course, HP is pretty obvious why we need that. Because we need to get the most bang for our buck here, we're gonna have to talk about a little something called determinant values, or DVs. These would later be renamed to IVs in Generation 3, but they work pretty much the same here. Each time you get an encounter with a wild Pokemon, that Pokemon is randomly assigned a DV ranging from 0 to 15 for each of its stats. Well, except HP. That's determined by the other 4 DVs. I'm not really going to get into how that's calculated, as it's not really important. As you may have guessed, a higher DV means the Pokemon has a higher value in that stat. So, for example, a level 3 Weedle with 15 DVs and HP has more HP than a level 3 Weedle with 5 DVs in HP, for example. If we want to complete this challenge, we're going to need every single advantage we can get, and that means we're going to have to catch a whole bunch of Weedles and hope they have 15 DVs in every stat. And that's what I did. I spent nearly 2 hours straight, using the emulator speed up, mind you, trying to find a perfect Weedle. Here's the thing, when a Pokemon's at a lower level, its stats are lower. Makes sense. But that makes it pretty difficult to determine exactly how many DVs it has. Because the game doesn't tell you how many DVs you have, you kind of have to make inferences based on the stat that you're given in the pause menu. Unfortunately, when the stats are lower, there's a lot of rounding that goes on, and that makes it pretty hard to pinpoint the exact DV that you have. I mean, just look at the equation the DV has to be put through. And these ranges of DVs can be pretty large. A few times I got DVs ranging from 0 to 15, meaning it's not really possible to know what the exact DV is. It could be 0, or it could be 15, or it could be 7. Not that it matters, because I couldn't find a Weedle that even had a chance to have max DVs in every stat. And after being put through those 2 hours of pure torture, the thought that my Weedle could end up having a middling DV was really starting to set in. The journey hasn't even started yet, and my morale is already dangerously low. That's why I made an executive decision and used a cheat to give my Weedle max DVs. I know. I'm not thrilled with it either. But I just don't have the time to train 100 Weedles to a point where I could accurately determine their DVs. So here it is, our max DV Weedle that we're going to use to become champion. I named him Noodle, because I thought that was cute. Noodle is level 3 and knows Poison Sting and String Shot. He also enjoys long walks on the beach after romantic leaf dinners. Anyway, now that that's all cleared up, we can go fight the optional rival near the Pokemon League. No, we can't. Not because he's too strong. I mean, he probably is, but at the moment we can't even reach the guy. In order to get through Viridian Forest, we have to fight the bug catcher with the level 9 Weedle. Now, I may not be an expert strategist, but I do know that 9 is greater than 3. So I went ahead and did some grinding, and here's why I specifically chose Blue version. In Blue version, Metapod have a 40% chance of appearing. In Generation 1, Poison is super effective against Bug, so fighting Metapod is preferred to fighting Kakuna, who is Bug Poison, and therefore would take neutral damage. I leveled up to level 11 and absolutely destroyed the Bug Catcher. Unfortunately, the rival won't be so easy. We have to fight a Pidgey and a Bulbasaur. The Pidgey knows Sand Attack, which lowers our accuracy, which absolutely fucks us in the ass. I wasn't even able to beat the level 9 Pidgey. So I grinded up to level 17 and took another sting at it. Of course, the Pidgey starts off with Sand Attack, but it fails. That's another unique thing to Gen 1. Status moves used by the opponent always have a chance to fail in Gen 1. I think the rate is 25% or something like that. However, the next Sand Attack does hit, which causes Noodle to miss his next Poison Sting. Pidgey then goes for Gust, which thankfully doesn't do too much damage, and Noodle is able to take it down with the next Poison Sting. Next up is the Bulbasaur, who takes about a third from Poison Sting, which is good, but then it uses Growl, so I'm sadly not going to get the 3-hit KO without a crit. Oh, wait, never mind, it failed. Well, that's nice, but Noodle misses his next Poison Sting, so it kind of evens out. The next Bulbasaur goes for Leech Seed, which could be very bad if Noodle keeps missing, which he does. Then Bulbasaur hits with Growl. Uh-oh. Noodle finally hits with a Poison Sting, and it does way less damage than I was expecting. Then it uses Growl again, and at this point the battle is over. Noodle's attack is so low that it's barely out-damaging Leech Seed. And yeah, I just lost. At level 17. Over double the level of both of his Pokemon. I just think this goes to show how fucking bullshit accuracy-lowering moves are. Because I just reset until Pidgey didn't use Sand Attack and absolutely demolished him. Yeah, it helps that Bulbasaur didn't lead off with Growl or Leech Seed, but still, I think I would have been fine. Now with the rival out of the way, let's see how Noodle does against Brock. I'm under no illusion that I'll win, but let's see if we're close. The battle starts off, and shocker, Noodle uses Poison Sting. The absolute worst move to use, as both of Brock's Pokemon quad resist poison. Thankfully, the Geodude doesn't really like to attack. It usually uses Defense Curl, which doesn't really do anything as Noodle's only doing 1 damage. At least, that's what it seems like at first. But then something strange happens. Poison Sting starts to miss, and not just once. After a few Defense Curls, it misses every single time. This is known as the 0 damage glitch. Basically, if a move's damage calculation returns 0 against a Pokemon who quad resists the move, the game will just treat it as a miss. Why? I have no idea, but we gotta deal with it. Well, at least we can count on poison damage to get us through, right?
Wrong!
Some genius at Game Freak thought it would be a fantastic idea to give Brock like a bajillion full heals. Why? Probably the same reason Poison Sting keeps missing. So Poison Sting isn't going to work. Boy, sure would be nice to have another move that I could use. Hey, wait. There is another move I can use. If a Pokemon is out of PP for all of its moves, then it will use the super secret move, Struggle. Struggle is a 50 base power normal type move that deals recoil damage equal to half of the damage dealt to the opponent. While that may not sound like such a large drawback, especially considering the fact that Struggle will be nearly 7 times stronger than Poison Sting, the recoil does add up pretty fast, especially if the Geodude gets bored of using Defense Curl and starts using Tackle. After some grinding, I leveled up to level 24 and went back to try again. This time I was able to beat the Geodude quite easily and made it to the Onix. Thankfully, at level 24, Onix isn't very dangerous either. However, that's assuming it doesn't use Bide. Bide is a move that causes the Pokemon to charge for 2 to 3 turns. Then, they will deal double the damage they took during those turns to the opponent. If Noodle gets a crit while the Onix is charging, you're gonna have to kill it before it can release that Bide, otherwise you're fucked. Which did happen to me. But after a few tries, I was finally able to beat the first gym leader and move on to Route 3. Which for the most part is a cakewalk, except for the hikers with their Geodudes. Thankfully, every hiker on this route is optional, so just walk right by him, it's not worth it, trust me. Before entering Mount Moon, I decided to buy a Magikarp from this guy. I shall name her Kylie, and she shall become a vital part of the team. Now, Mount Moon is a bit more difficult, as the Rocket Grunts have Zubats with Supersonic, but Noodle is able to power through it. Just be sure to avoid the hikers. Unfortunately, Cerulean City is a bit of a wall at this level. I can't get past Misty or the rival, so I went into the grass, and at level 30, I thought I was strong enough for the rival. Unfortunately, his Pidgeotto still knows Sand Attack, but at this level, it's a 3-hit KO and Noodle outspeeds, so there's a good chance that it's only going to get 1 off, which is still annoying, but manageable. Especially because Abra only knows Teleport, which does nothing in trainer battles in this gen. The Rattata is only going to take 1 hit, so as long as Noodle can get over the sand in his eye, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. The Bulbasaur is when things can get dangerous. You need to kill the Bulbasaur quickly because it'll use Leech Seed, so you better hope you don't miss too much. Thankfully, even with suffering 2 fistfuls of sand to the eyes, Noodle was able to hit enough Poison Stings to stop the life force being drained from him. Nice! After that, I decided to go past Nugget Bridge to Bill's house, got the SS ticket, and went to see how Noodle would fail against Misty at level 32. Even at this high level, it takes 4 hits to faint the Staryu. Thankfully, it didn't do too much damage to Noodle. And in all honesty, neither can Starmie. However, Misty is quick to use an X Defend on it. Combine that with Starmie's excellent critical hit rate, and it's not too long until poor Noodle is overwhelmed. But after a few tries, Noodle was able to get a few crits of its own, and send the overgrown sea star back to the bottom of the ocean. With Cerulean City taken care of, we can head south, and along the way I decided to put Kylie into the daycare, so she can grow up to be big and strong. Before long, we make it to Vermilion City and board the SS Sand to take on the rival at level 35. Finally, the rival's Pidgeotto doesn't have Sand Attack anymore, so while it will be attacking us every single turn, Noodle will also be attacking it every single turn, which is a really good trade-off because the Pidgeotto and the Raticate can't deal too much damage. The Caterpie uses Confusion, which does over a third, but Noodle's able to take it out with 2 Poison Stings. We just gotta pray the Ivysaur doesn't use Vine Whip. Okay, Growl, I'll take it. Tackle isn't doing too much, but Noodle's down to only 11 health. It goes for Growl again, and it fails! Yes! Another Tackle, and Noodle's down to 6 health, but the Ivysaur is so low! Another Growl, but it shouldn't matter. Uh-oh. If he uses Tackle, we're gonna lose. Damn it. Oh, the 1 HP win! Let's fucking go! That was like my 5th try, by the way. I was just about to give up and grind some more. But now we can grab Cut and move right along to Lieutenant Surge. Or Left-Tenant Surge, depending on where you're from. At level 38, Noodle can take out both the Voltorb and the Pikachu in 2 hits, and outspeed both, meaning they're both only going to be able to get 1 attack off. Not a problem for the Voltorb, but the Pikachu knows Growl, which is going to make things more difficult against the Raichu. The Raichu on its own isn't too dangerous, but if Noodle gets paralyzed, then he's not going to make it. Ideally, the Voltorb would use Screech, but it used Tackle and Sonic Boom, and then the Pikachu would use Quick Attack or Thunder Shock. Then you should be good against the Raichu as long as there aren't any paralysis or crit shenanigans. Before I head into Rock Tunnel, I did catch a few Pokemon and grabbed Flash from the aid, because despite what you may think, I'm not actually a professional gamer. After catching them all, Rock Tunnel is a breeze, even with the mandatory hikers. Makes sense as Noodle is over level 40 at the moment. After making it to Celadon, I head to the Rocket hideout, where I need to fight the Team Rocket leader, Giovanni. First time I fought this guy, I nearly soiled myself. Little joke for you. He starts out with an Onix, followed by a Rhyhorn, followed by a Kangaskhan. Even at level 49, nearly double the level of the Onix, Poison Sting is doing like a pixel's worth of damage. Rock Throw, on the other hand, is doing a pretty decent damage against poor Noodle here. And even on the off chance he gets a bunch of crits and makes it to the Rhyhorn, he's only 1 horn attack away from death. Sadly, at level 49, Noodle was never able to come close to getting to the Kangaskhan. And it's not like there's really anything I can hope for here. Onix will spam Rock Throw and nothing else. Even with Rock Throw's abysmal accuracy, it takes so many hits to kill the Onix that it doesn't really matter. So I had to leave him for the time being. I decided to take out my rage on the Grass Gym. Erica didn't even stand a chance. Despite her best efforts to immobilize Noodle with Wrap and Bind shenanigans, our valiant hero was able to break free and destroy the vile, venomous vegetation. So that got me a few levels. I also took care of the Fighting Dojo and the rival batter in Lavender, both of which were pretty easy, so I'm going to skip them for time's sake. Keep in mind that Noodle is over level 50 at the moment, and I wasn't able to make any real progress against Giovanni until I got Noodle to level 60. So I spent a lot of time in the grass, even after all the extra battles. The first thing you'll probably notice is that I'm once again using Struggle. I had tried this earlier, but the thing about Struggle is that once the opponent's teams start getting bigger, the recoil really starts to add up. However, at this level, Noodle has enough HP where I thought I could make it work. The battle is pretty much the same as last time. Onix spams Rock Throw, Rhyhorn spams Horn Attack. The main differences are that A. Noodle is dealing a ton more damage, B. Noodle is taking far less damage, and C. Noodle can actually make it to the Kangaskhan. This is where you need some help from Lady Luck. The Kangaskhan could easily take out Noodle with any attack. Thankfully, it tends to use Comet Punch, which only has 85% accuracy. Or you could get what I got to happen, where it uses Rage, and at that point it's a done deal because Gen 1 Rage is probably the worst Pokemon move of all time. Once you start using Rage, you can't stop. Ever.
for any reason.
Thanks to that, I can finally get my hands on the Silph Scope, save Mr. Fuji, and get the Poke Flute to progress the story. Now, some of you fans of Pokemon speedruns may be asking why I didn't use the Pokédoll skip in order to bypass the need for the Silph Scope. For you uninitiated, if you use a Pokédoll on the unidentified ghost blocking the stairs to Mr. Fuji, the game will count that as calming Ghost Marowak. This skip allows you to bypass the entirety of the Rocket Hideout and Giovanni, which would have saved me a fuck ton of time. But remember the rules at the beginning. I specifically said that every boss trainer must be defeated. It just doesn't feel like in the spirit of the challenge to skip important trainers like Giovanni, which is why I chose the set of rules that I did. Moving along, I headed down towards Fuchsia City and got a bunch of easy XP from the bikers on Cycling Road and tried battling Koga. But I soon realized that it was just not gonna happen. Not at this level, at least. Koga's Pokemon are way too bulky for the time being. So I decided to head to Saffron and get some more levels at Silph Company, where we have yet another encounter with the rival. First up is Pidgeot, who will spam Wing Attack. Fortunately for Noodle, Wing Attack is only base 35 power in this generation. The problem with Pidgeot is that it gets crits fairly often. If it gets 1, it should be fine, but 2 or more and Noodle's gonna be in a bit of trouble. Up next is the Gyarados, who has Hydro Pump, which we absolutely cannot see. Thankfully, it tends to prefer Leer and Bite, which can still be annoying, but at least they're not total run-enders. You'd think the Growlithe would be problematic, but not really. As long as it doesn't get a burn with Ember, we're still in this. Out next is Alakazam, who just absolutely wipes the floor with poor Noodle. Yeah, this isn't gonna work either. Well, I guess it's back to the grass for me. So I leveled up to level 73. At this point, I was starting to lose my mind.
After reaching level 80, that's right, I said level 80! I finally felt confident enough to take on Koga once again.
As you can see, I'm using Struggle once more, and it deals, like, infinitely more damage than Poison Sting. Seriously, it is comical how weak Poison Sting is. Using Struggle at this level, Noodle can take out most of the Pokemon in just 1 or 2 hits, except for the Weezing, who at this point was really starting to piss me off. It always goes for self-destruct. Always. Even if you get a few turns to hit it, it is damn near indestructible. Thankfully, I do have a plan for this. You see, Gen 1 has a bit of an oversight when it comes to calculating a move's accuracy. Whenever a move undergoes an accuracy check, a number between 0 and 255 is generated. If the move has 100% accuracy, like, for example, self-destruct, the generated number must be less than 255 in order for the move to hit. However, 255 is not less than 255, meaning if the number generated just so happens to be 255, the game will count it as a miss. I think you can see where I'm going with this. Yes, I was willing to repeat this battle until I got the legendary, mythical, magical 1 in 256 miss chance on the Weezing self-destruct. That is until I got this run where Noodle magically survived the self-destruct on 1 HP. With my head held high, I finally had the courage to head back to Silph Company and take another shot at the rival. At level 77, it takes 4 hits to take down the Pidgeot and the Gyarados. By the time Growlithe gets sent out, Noodle is at half health. The Growlithe only takes 2 hits to take out and barely does any damage. The Alakazam takes 2 hits and... okay, we're not out of the woods yet, but it's certainly possible at this point.
Thankfully it goes for Vine Whip turn 1, then Leech Seed. Okay, as long as we can kill it now. Did he just use a potion? His Pokemon are level 40 and he's still using potions. Guess that's Gen 1 for you. Unfortunately, that may actually cost us. Leech Seed combined with Vine Whip will probably kill. But it just uses Leech Seed again. You see why I want to do this run in Red and Blue now? It cannot be understated just how often the shitty Gen 1 AI comes in clutch. Both with the doubling up on the Leech Seed and the fact that it just refused to use Razor Leaf, which probably would have just knocked Noodle out then and there.
Old Noodle's on a roll. Let's see if he can keep this roll going against the second Giovanni battle. He starts off with a Nidorino, who likes to use Focus Energy, so we're pretty safe. Next is the Kangaskhan, who's pretty much a gimme since it loves to use Rage. After that, there's a Rhyhorn who just spams Tail Whip, which could actually be a pretty big problem if Giovanni decides to use any strong physical moves. Then out comes the Nidoqueen, which knows Body Slam. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh man. I would try time and time again, but the Rhyhorn just takes too long to KO, giving it an opportunity to make a Noodle so squishy it won't even stand a chance against the Nidoqueen. Using Struggle is completely out of the question at this point. The recoil is just too much to deal with. I was forced to abandon Sylph Company yet again and head back into the grass. At this point, I had pretty much lost my mind. I don't even know what to say anymore. I just want to forget. After God knows how many hours of grinding, I got Noodle up to level 87 and gave it another shot. I got a bit unlucky with damage ranges against the Nidorino, causing it to take 4 hits. Usually it only takes 3. It may not seem like that big of a deal since it can't do so much damage, but in a battle like this, every point of HP really does matter.
The Kangaskhan starts off with Rage, which is exactly what we want to see. Gen 1 Rage is very likely the worst move of all time. When the Rhydon switches in, we get a Guard Spec, nice, then a Stomp, then a Tail Whip, that fails, that's huge! We finally get the Poison on the next Poison Sting as Rhyhorn goes for Horn Attack. As long as it doesn't lower Noodle's defense, we have a very solid shot at winning. It doesn't, and out comes Nidoqueen. It goes for Scratch, which is what we want to see. The next Scratch crits, which is not what we want to see. Then it uses a Guard Spec, which is what we 100% want to see. 2 more Scratches, nice, but then it goes for Tail Whip. Now Scratch isn't going to do too much more damage, but Body Slam definitely will. Well, that wasn't too bad, at least it didn't paralyze. Another crit Scratch? Gee, it sure would be nice if I could get some crits every now and then. But suddenly, a switch flips in the Nidoqueen's brain, which tells her to stop attacking me and to spam Tail Whip. Once again, the Gen 1 AI saves the day.
With that taken care of, I elected to fight Sabrina. I think I might have a chance. On one hand, Poison is weak to Psychic, but on the other hand, Sabrina's Pokemon have pretty bad physical defense.
The Kadabra is an easy OHKO, and all the Mr. Mime does is set up with a light screen. The Venomoth is no trouble at all. The worst thing about it is the fact that it's being used by the Psychic-type trainer instead of one of the many Gen 1 Psychic types. Oh, wait, a confused Noodle. Uh-oh. Thankfully, the Alakazam just kept spamming Side Beam! Doesn't even take into account type effectiveness! And yeah, I just first tried Sabrina with the Weedle. I'm pretty cool like that.
Now, the only badge left that I can obtain at this time is Blaine's. So let's head down to Cinnabar and see if we can get a battle that's a little more climactic. The Growlithe isn't a problem, it only takes 2 hits to knock out, and all it uses is Ember. Ponyta also only takes 2 hits, but it decided to use Fire Spin, which is pretty annoying. The Rapidash really likes to use Fire Spin.
But Noodle took it out in just 3 hits, so it's no big deal. Arcanine is his ace and knows Fire Blast, but just really wanted to use Ember instead. Why am I not surprised? Even with a crit, wasn't able to take Noodle down, and we get the 7th gym badge.
Now that we've defeated the first 7 gym leaders, we can head back to Viridian City and enter the final gym. Oh boy, I wonder who the final gym leader's gonna be. Yeah, we have to fight Giovanni again. Now, I could try to beat him at my current level, which is 89, but I did pick up 10 of the hidden rare candies during my playthrough. So I thought it would be better just to get to level 90 so I could use them to reach the max level. Because let's face it, this fight is going to be insanely difficult, if not impossible. This time around, Giovanni sends out Rhyhorn first. It's going to take a while to kill, so ideally we want an early poison. It would also be nice if it spammed Guard Specs and Horn Drill. When it does attack, we want 2 turn Fury Swipes. Stomp can be pretty dangerous, especially if it decides to use a Tail Whip, which it most likely will. Next is a Dugtrio, whose only purpose is to use Sand Attack. Next up is our longtime rival, Nidoqueen. We want it to spam Scratch and never use Tail Whip, and especially never use Body Slam. If Noodle gets paralyzed, it runs dead. Unfortunately for poor Noodle, this Nidoqueen is absolutely relentless with these body slams. I'm telling ya, she fucking wants to peg a Noodle or something with how much she's slamming into him.
It took me over 40 minutes just to make it to the Nidoking, which isn't even his final Pokemon, by the way. And by this point, Noodle will be so wore down that it only takes a single thrash to send Noodle 6 feet under. I played this fight over and over and over and over for hours, and it always used thrash before Noodle could take it out. So I had to do something I really didn't want to do. I had to use the emulator rewind. For those of you unfamiliar, most emulators have a rewind feature, which, as you could guess, lets you rewind the game. So if a pesky Nidoking is using thrash, I could just keep rewinding it until it decides not to. So let's see how this battle goes now that we can control time. You might think that using rewind makes this battle free, but you'd be very, very wrong. Even with the power to control time, you're not going to win unless you take a very specific path through the fight. For the Rhyhorn, we need to rewind until it uses Horn Drill or Guard Spec. Problem is that it never, ever wants to use Horn Drill, and Giovanni will only use a Guard Spec on it once. Stomp does way too much damage, so we need to fish for Fury attacks. But it can't just be any Fury attack, it has to be a 2-turn Fury attack. It may not look like it makes much of a difference, but trust me, every single pixel of that HP bar is paramount to beating this fight. Next is the Dugtrio, and here's where we really need a Guard Spec. Dugtrio takes several hits and can either do a shit ton of damage with Slash, remember it's a guaranteed crit in Gen 1, or lower Noodle's stats with Growl and Sand Attack. Growl is absolutely, positively, 100% not allowed to hit, so we have to fish for Sand Attacks. Which, now that we can control time, is nothing more than an annoyance. Thankfully, we don't have to worry about Dig. Due to some shoddy programming regarding type effectiveness, the AI thinks that I resist ground because of Noodle's bug typing, when in reality, Noodle is neutral to ground due to its poison typing. After that is a Nidoqueen, which needs to use Scratch. Body Slam does too much damage, and a Paralysis means a lost battle. Tail Whip's no good either, as we need every single piece of defense we can get. And it'll never use Poison Sting due to aforementioned shoddy programming. Up next is his best Pokemon, Nidoking. The best we can do here is getting a single Guard Spec, followed by Tackle. Lots and lots of tackles. On its own, Tackle doesn't do too much, but it will quickly wear Noodle down, especially because it takes so many Poison Stings. This is why we couldn't afford to have our defense lowered and why we needed all that HP. It's gonna be real close. Several runs ended here, even while using Rewind. There was just nothing I could hope for. Nidoking will be attacking you every single turn after the first Guard Spec, and there's nothing you can do about it. But if you follow this exact path that I took, you can take out the Nidoking and get the final gym badge. Well, there is still the Rhydon, but unlike its unevolved counterpart, it loves to use Horn Drill, and uses it nearly every single turn, so it's no concern at all. Remember that in Gen 1, OHKO moves only worked if you were faster than the opponent, which Rhydon is not, so it will always fail. And with that, Giovanni is finally defeated for good. I know everyone likes to joke about how incompetent Team Rocket is, but in this challenge, they're anything but. Giovanni's been one of the biggest thorns in my side for this entire run. Right behind Sean, who is actually our next opponent. And is stupid easy. Literally first try. You would think the Alakazam would be a problem, but it always seems to use Reflect. And luckily Poison Sting does enough damage that it's still a 2-hit KO. It's also nice that the Gyarados didn't decide to use Hydro Pump, but I had to play this fight like 3 times due to recording difficulties, and it has never once taken more than 3 tries. So, yeah, pretty easy. And so, we finally made it to the Elite Four. Well, it's more like the Elite 5, but whatever. Let's see how Noodle does against Lorelei. I want to preface this fight with a little anecdote. A lot of people like to rag on Seal and Dugong. They say that they're boring or unoriginal, that their names are too derivative of actual Seals and Dugongs. And for a long time I defended them. I thought they were just silly little guys who were cute and got too much hate. I'd say all that goodwill evaporated right around hour 6 of fighting this Dugong. And no, I'm not joking. I spent over 6 hours trying to beat this fucking sea cow. How? Why, you may ask? It's all because of one move, Rest. Rest is a move that, when used, will restore 100% of the user's max HP and cure their status condition. The catch is that it puts you to sleep for a turn. Taking into account that you can't act the turn you wake up in Gen 1, and Noodle outspeeds the Dugong, we get 3 turns to take it out before it uses Rest again. And 3 Poison Stings don't do anywhere near enough damage to take it out before then. How do I know it'll use Rest again? Well, Lorelei has what's known as good AI. Any trainers with good AI will avoid moves that are not very effective and use moves that are super effective. If you didn't know, Rest is a Psychic type move, which makes no sense, and means that the Dugong will use Rest and only Rest. Well, can't you just stall out Rest as 10 PP? Well, that's a swell idea. Let's do just that.
It didn't work.
Yes, viewer, you saw that right. Despite using Rest well over 10 times, it just kept using it. Huh, it's almost as if the AI in Gen 1 cheats by having infinite power points on their moves. Oh wait, that's exactly what's happening! Alas, there is a way. Noodle needs to get not 1, not 2, but 3, yes 3 critical hits in a row. How likely is that? Well, in Gen 1, due to the weird way that crits are calculated, Noodle has a little under a 10% chance to get a crit. So the odds of getting 3 crits in a row are 1 in 1,000. But guess what? I did get past the Dugong. Several times, actually. And I still didn't win. Either I would run out of PP or the Lapras would get a lucky paralyze with Body Slam. And let me tell you, there is nothing more demoralizing than waiting for 3 fucking hours to get past the Dugong, only to run out of PP at the very end of the fight. So yeah, I used Rewind to get the crit luck I needed and proceeded to sweep her team. The only Pokemon with a chance to stand in Noodle's way are the Cloyster, with its totally hilarious Confusion Trolls, which totally didn't cause me to blow a gasket, and the Lapras, with its godforsaken Paralysis hacks. Rewind is not required at all for the rest of her team. After that fiasco is Bruno, who normally sucks, but to a Weedle can actually be pretty dangerous. And it's mostly because of his Onix, if you could believe it. Even more shocking is the fact that the most dangerous move they can use is Rage. Yes, you heard that right. Gen 1 Rage is giving me trouble. Because the Onix takes so many hits to take out, they'll be pretty damn strong by the time Noodle can take the first one down, leaving him easy prey for the second. Thankfully, I have a plan. For the first time since Brock, we're gonna use String Shot. The plan is to poison the Onix before it uses Rage. Then, once it does use Rage, stall it out with String Shot. This is surprisingly effective and has the added bonus of saving Poison Sting PP for the Machamp, who is not much of an issue, mind you, but running out of PP will usually mean a lost battle, unless you have it severely chipped and poisoned. Bruno still sucks, but not quite as hard as usual. And now we get to Agatha. And boy am I excited to talk about Agatha, cause she is just, oh so funny. You see, instead of actually being good, she just confuses you, and then you kill yourself. Hey Agatha, here's an even funnier idea. How about you kill yourself, you old fucking ag? So yeah, this fight is stupid and dumb and entirely relies on you not losing turns to confusion or getting slept. Also, since all of Agatha's Pokemon are Poison type, Poison Sting is doing even less damage than it normally does. So much so that it's very, very likely that you run out of power points for Poison Sting. If that happens before all her Ghost Pokemon go down, you lose. Remember that Struggle is not typeless in Gen 1, it's normal type, and thus cannot damage Ghost types. So once again, we need to rely on getting lots of crits. So if you hadn't already guessed, I had to use Rewind again. I know, it sucks, I'm mad about it too, but I'm not in the fucking mood to spend another 6 hours trying to get past more dumb RNG bullshit. For the first Gengar, Nightshade isn't too much of a threat, but spamming Dream Eater is obviously preferred. Rewind is really only needed to avoid confusion and sleep. Then something interesting happens. Agatha switches out Gengar for Golbat. Yeah, for whatever reason, Agatha is one of the only AI trainers I can think of who will actually switch out their Pokemon. When she switches is random, but it does give us a free attack, so that's nice. Golbat is much the same as Gengar. It can't really do anything dangerous other than cause confusion. I guess Haze does remove the small boost you get from the gym badges, but that's not really a huge deal. Agatha tends to pivot back and forth between the Gengar and the Golbat quite often, so just keep that in mind. I suppose now is as good a time as any to talk about the PP situation. Basically, what I do to ensure I have enough Poison Stings to see me through is that every so often I'll keep rewinding until I get crits. It doesn't have to be every single attack, but you are going to need a decent amount. The Haunter is basically the same as the Gengar. Avoid getting status, get its huge Dream Eater. The important thing here is we preferably want to take it out before the Arbok, so that just in case we do run out of Poison Stings, we can still do damage with struggle. That also means that after we deal with the Haunter and Agatha sends out Arbok, we get her to switch into the last Gengar as soon as possible. This Gengar is, again, more the same, except it knows Toxic, which Noodle is immune to, so that's nice. Now we can finally talk about Arbok, who is actually pretty dangerous. Glare is a run ender, and Bite can do a lot of damage. I honestly should have managed my HP better in this fight, but I was able to get through by getting it to use Screech instead of attacking me. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, since you had to use Rewind on Agatha, you're obviously going to have to use it against Lance, right? Lance is after Agatha, so that means he's more hard to murmur. Well, remember that whole good AI thing that was giving us trouble with Lorelei? Here's where we can use it to our advantage. Unfortunately, it won't help us with the Gyarados, but as long as it uses Dragon Rage or Leer, it's really not an issue. But when the Dragonair comes out, you can see that it's very concerned about its speed. In fact, it's so worried about being outsped that it keeps using Agility even after it's at max speed. Yep, Agility is a Psychic-type move, even though it once again makes no sense. But hey, at least it's helpful this time. And guess what? The next Dragonair also knows Agility and has gotta go fast. Unfortunately, the next Pokemon, Aerodactyl, doesn't know Agility, and it's actually pretty dangerous. Hyper Beam will very likely knock Noodle out if the Gyarados got a good hit in. And Supersonic sucks for obvious reasons. Takedown can do a bit of damage, but it's pretty inaccurate, and Bite isn't too threatening. The real good news is that the Dragonite also knows Agility and Barrier for some reason. Even though Dragonite can't actually learn it in Gen 1, not even through tradebacks, not through prior evolutions, not through TM. Yet another example of Gen 1 AI being disgusting, cheating scumbags. Not that it mattered, but it's just the principle of the thing, you know? And so, here we are, the final battle. Can Weedle defeat the most powerful trainer in Kanto? Only one way to find out. The rival once again leads off with Pidgeot. Thankfully, Wing Attack isn't doing too much damage. It's only base 35 power in Gen 1, but Mirror Move is obviously what we want to see. Then he uses Sky Attack, and just look how much damage Sky Attack does. Wait. But here's the moment of truth. Can Noodle OHKO the Alakazam? Oh my god, we're so fucked. It uses Psybeam and takes Noodle out. Well, that sucked. But what if Pidgeot doesn't use Sky Attack? Well, when the Pidgeot doesn't use Sky Attack, I'm able to get to the Alakazam in much better shape. It just uses Reflect a whole bunch, but right before I'm able to take it out, it uses Psybeam, which thankfully doesn't knock Noodle out. So we finally made it to his third Pokemon, Rhydon. The only thing Rhydon has that can deal damage is Fury Attack. On its own, it's not too dangerous, but it also knows Leer and Tail Whip, so say goodbye to your defense. Thankfully, it rarely uses Fury Attack, so after a while you can just barely whittle it down, only to have the rival use a full restore on it, allowing it to obliterate you. Well, what if the rival doesn't use a full restore? This actually did happen, if you could believe it, and it left me with over half of my HP for Gyarados. Uh-oh. Aww, man. Well, what if the Gyarados doesn't use Hyper Beam? In order to get this footage, I played this fight for an hour and 26 minutes. And before you asked, yes, that is the same length as 1992's The Muppets Christmas Carol. Anyway, in that span of time, I made it to the Gyarados once. You just saw it. The odds of everything happening the way they did are incredibly, incredibly low. Let's not forget that the Gyarados also knows Hydro Pump and is going to take multiple hits to take out. Even if we do, there's still 2 Pokemon after Gyarados. Yes, I am sorry to report that we are going to have to rely on Rewind once again. As previously mentioned, Pidgeot isn't a problem as long as it doesn't use Sky Attack, Alakazam isn't a problem as long as it doesn't use Psybeam or Psychic, and Rhydon isn't a problem as long as it doesn't use a full restore. For Gyarados, we want Leer or Dragon Rage. Leer isn't a problem since there's no physical attackers after this point, and Dragon Rage does 40 damage, so whatever. So we finally made it to the Arcanine, whose Ember does nothing. But it can burn you, so you might want to watch out for that. You don't have to worry about Takedown or Roar because of good AI. This is it. The final Pokemon, Mega Drain! Well, that did nothing. But here comes Solar Beam! Oh. Well, that was anticlimactic. But guess who doesn't care? Me! Because I've finally beaten the fucking game with the fucking guy. Oh. And these guys who tagged along for more support. And it only took 44.5 in-game hours. That doesn't even count resets. Well, that answers the question. Yes, Weedle can technically beat Gen 1 with no items. Will anyone ever do it legitimately? I don't think so. I don't. For one thing, getting a Weedle with max DVs in Gen 1 is probably impossible due to the fucked up RNG. So you'd have to trade a perfect Weedle from Gen 2. Then you'd have to go through the trouble of training it. Then you'd have to wait for perfect RNG against Giovanni, Lorelei, Agatha, and the champion. Now, I do see a path to victory for Lorelei and the champion. Those are possible. It would just take so fucking long. But Giovanni and Agatha? No. No. I'd say there's better odds of Charles Martinet voicing Mario in the new Mario movie after Chris Pratt dies. That's the last time I asked my friends for help with the script. Okay, so let's be honest. This entire run is just, like, entirely RNG, right? There's no strategy in this. The only strategy that you can use is that sometimes you can use Struggle in the early game when the teams aren't too big. Or you can use String Shot to lower the opponent's speed, but you're never going to use it to lower the opponent's speed. You're going to use String Shot twice. You're going to use it once during the Brock fight when the Onyx uses Bide. And then you're going to use it in the Bruno fight for Rage. That's it. You're never going to use String Shot after that. There's just no strategy in a run like this. Unless you count me going into the emulator settings and turning on Turbo so I can just hold the A button instead of having to tap it over and over again, which helped make the video go fast, and I didn't really realize that until like the end of my second playthrough. So yeah, that would have been nice to know. All I can say is that Weedle is definitely the worst Pokemon that you can actually beat the game with. Like, oh my god, this took so fucking long. This was so long. Weedle is bad. Weedle is bad. Weedle is really, really bad. So yeah, honestly, I am just so pumped to finally have this video out. I've been working on this for like more than a year, and it would have been out months ago if my fucking hard drive didn't go kaput and delete all of my footage. I mean all of it. I had the entire video recorded from the start of the game all the way to the champion, and I lost all of it, so I had to replay the entire game all over again, which was great. Oh yeah, and just in case you're curious, Kylie got up to level 44 while in the daycare. Well, that's it. That's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I love you. I love Weedle. I love making videos. I love my cat. I love Bina for making the thumbnail of this video. Bye. Bye-bye. Goodbye now. Bye. Bye-bye. Goodbye. Bye-bye. Bye now. Bye.